welcome to Off My Shelves, and in this episode we're going to be looking at Batman, Ego and Other Stories by Darwyn Cooke, the deluxe edition from DC. So we will get underway. Like several million people around the world, I obviously went to see the new Batman movie, and when I finished it, the one thing I wanted to do more than anything is reread Darwyn Cooke's Ego. Now why is because this has been touted by a lot of places as one of the major inspirational stories, and the two certainly that I can see being a major influence and literally having lines taken directly from the pages and said out loud in the film was Ego and The Long Halloween. There are a few others, but they were used really heavily, I felt, in the new film. And incidentally, I liked the new film. It was certainly too long. It could have been edited down and refined and been made into a superb film, I thought. I loved the first hour, I loved the last hour, and that middle bit and some of the character development was a bit off. And how Batman always believed everything everyone said. Like a gangster character comes up to him at one point and tells him a story he believes in, and then in the next scene Alfred tells him the same story but with a different, murderer or whatever at the end, and he was like, oh, I believe that, he was lying to me. And the same with Catwoman. The moment he first meets Catwoman, he believes that. He's way too trusting for Batman, in my opinion. But either way, I think if it was edited a bit down, and it could have been made into a much, much stronger movie. But the one thing I loved about it is that when it ended, it made me really want to dive in and reread some of my favourite Batman stories, like Long Halloween, like Batman Ego, and that's not a bad thing. So this year is the deluxe edition, so it comes with a dust jacket, same size as a Marvel Omnibus or DC Omnibus. It does come with a rather plain cover, and I remember I was on Facebook before and I was saying to people, what the hell is this thing on the front cover? It looks ridiculous. And someone shouted at me and said, maybe you should read the book first. And I've read the book a few times and I still contest that image taken out of context doesn't make much sense, really. It is the image from the opening pages of Ego with this alternative kind of Batman from Bruce Wayne's psyche. And unlike a lot of DC deluxe editions, this is actually sewn binding. Midway between glossy and matte paper. More glossy than matte, but still nice quality paper, not too see-through, not massively overly thick, but fine. And you can get this fairly cheap from a lot of places now, really, I think. And what it is a collection of shorter stories with Darwyn Cooke at the helm in some way, be that art and writing or art, those things. You should buy this for 3 stories and that's it. There are more stories in here. I think the back itself says collecting 8 classic tales of the Dark Knight with Darwyn Cooke. And for those who don't know Darwyn Cooke, he does amazing work in Parker and other series, and yeah, he's one of my favourite artists because he kind of captures this 1950s, 60s aesthetic, and yeah, it's just beautiful art. But either way, the book starts off with Batman Ego, and that goes for 70 or so pages or 60 or so pages, and that is one of the main reasons you buy this book. The longer stories are the reasons you buy this book, I would say. So you buy it for Batman Ego, Selina's Big Score, which is a Catwoman story, and then the Batman Spirit crossover, which is called Crime Convention. Now they are really the main reasons I would buy this book, to be honest. The others are very short form stories, between a handful of pages and 10 or 12 pages long. But first and foremost, Batman Ego. This, as Darwyn Cooke says in this book, is one of those stories that he wanted to put together. He wanted to create a story that Batman and Bruce Wayne could have a discussion about being Batman, about committing to it, and about being those two dueling personalities. And that's essentially what Batman Ego is. It starts off with Batman being stabbed violently by the Joker and chasing one of the Joker's henchmen down, only to eventually find that henchman wants to kill himself, really, because he knows that the Joker is out to get him now because he double-crossed him, and he knows the Joker would kill his wife and family, so this criminal just beat him to the pass. He's murdered his wife and family, and then tried to kill himself, and eventually does kill himself, really, and Batman can't do nothing about it. But Batman then is instantly guilt-stricken because he's caused that chain of events to happen. This innocent wife and child would still be alive now if he hadn't started this domino effect, going after the Joker and making this guy snitch on him. And so that starts, and then Bruce Wayne, with lack of blood, with lack of sleep, with everything, starts going down into a kind of psychological breakdown, essentially, where this embodiment of Batman appears physically in front of him, and they begin to discuss the ins and outs of being Batman and how he is not committed enough, how Bruce Wayne is not committed enough to being Batman, and all this and that. And what it does do amazingly well, I think, is it does look at Bruce Wayne's time as Batman. It explores those contradictions in Batman and Bruce Wayne's personality and how the two can coexist as the same person. And it is a really well drawn and well paced and interesting, quick look at Batman and Bruce Wayne, and it's steeped deeply in all the kind of continuity of Bruce Wayne and Batman's life. And the artwork, obviously, as you would imagine from Darwyn Cooke, is stunning on every level. And there are specific lines that are taken directly from this, like the end of the Batman movie had a specific line, and when it was said in the end of the Batman movie, it made me want to read this and want to go back through it again, because it is pretty much the exact same line. Then you get a quick story called Herbie Monsters that Darwyn Cooke draws but Paul Grist writes, and then comes the bulk of the book, really. This book should technically, I would argue, be called Selina's Big Score, Catwoman story, because this is what the bulk of the book is it's not a Batman story, it's a Catwoman story. This Catwoman story essentially starts in Morocco, where Selina Kyle is down on luck, out of money, and she needs to go back to Gotham to stimulate her cash flow and get back into the game, really. So she's looking for that one big score to take some money and to get back on her feet. And so she comes back to Gotham, and this is a 4-issue mini-series. The first issue focuses on Selina coming back to Gotham, getting wind of a big mob transportation of money for drugs, and then she was going to plan taking that money off a train and it never arriving at the point where it can be exchanged for drugs. She was going to take it, 27 million or something like that, and then go on her way and enjoy having the money. But obviously she needs a team, she needs a crew around her. So the first issue is very much from Selina's point of view, coming back to Gotham, setting up this job, getting informants, and getting these characters and these wider cast involved. And so she brings in all manner of different people. But then issue 2 focuses on a character named Stark that is introduced in issue 1, but he is an old flame of Selina's, and he's certainly based on Parker, the character that Darwyn Cooke would ultimately write and really create his best work, in my opinion. And it's named Stark after Richard Stark, who was the pseudonym of the author who created Parker. And he is very much this criminal, hard, no-nonsense man. It really is a Parker character. If you know what I mean, you know what I mean. And he then gets with Selina and more planning, getting people involved, and then other elements start coming in, like private detectives getting involved in certain things, the mob getting wind of Selina's plan. And so the first issue is from Selina's point of view, the second from Stark's, the third from a private investigator who gets embroiled into all this world and this story, and then the fourth returns back to Selina's perspective when it's doing the big score, the big heist. It's a great Catwoman story, but Catwoman is almost like, you know, the new Joker movie with Joaquin Phoenix. You kind of get the feeling that they added Joker to the title just to get people in when it wasn't really Joker. This is kind of like that. You don't really get much Catwoman. You don't really get much pure Selina Kyle stuff. It's almost named Catwoman and Selina's Big Score, but it could be anyone, to be fair. But it's still very good and well worth a read, and the artistry, those thick heavy lines by Darwyn Cooke is great. Then you get another story from Batman Black and White called The Monument, which is a strange little story but quite enjoyable as well. And then you get that short tale of, you know, Date Night, I think it's called. Yeah, Date Night with a K, between Catwoman and Batman, and that's drawn by Tim Sale, and that's really fun more than anything. And then towards the end you get Batman and the Spirit crossover. The Spirit, invented by Will Eisner and has been done by Darwyn Cooke and Francisco Francavilla and other people over the years. This is bringing those two worlds together, really, and it's all centered around the police convention happening and criminals from the Spirit world and from Batman's world trying to wipe out the police and trying to wipe out all these people in power in the Justice Department, really, and Batman and the Spirit trying to foil those plans. And essentially that'll bring you to an end. It is a Harley Quinn story that's drawn by Darwyn Cooke but not written by Darwyn Cooke at the end, which is what it is. I didn't much enjoy it, to be honest, but it's nice to look at. And then there's a lovely covers gallery from Darwyn Cooke's cover work at DC at the back. Whenever you put a collection together like this, you're always going to get good stories and bad stories when you try to put together a collection of stories from an artist or writer over a series of different years. And some are far stronger than others, but those ones are detrimental to the other. Like is always the case, I think, when you have a really great story followed by a mediocre story, it makes the mediocre story much more mediocre. And that is the case with this sometimes, is those stories like Batman Ego, like Catwoman, Selina's Big Score, when you put them in this book and you read the stories before and after, they kind of feel very nothingy because those stories are so good and engaging. And yeah, it might be something to do with the length as well, who knows. But either way, overall, if you can get this book, it's certainly well worth a look, because anything by Darwyn Cooke, I think, is worth a look. And if you like the new movie, certainly have a read of Batman Ego, because you'll get an indication of the source material and what they were going with the character as well. But either way, I hope you enjoyed having a look at Batman Ego and other stories, and I will catch you on the next one.